So when talking to teachers lately, one of the things that's coming up the most is how exhausted folks are. I'm getting comments like, how do I motivate kids that won't engage at all? I'm dealing with an 8th grade class and it's like I physically watch everything go in one ear and out the other. Zero interest at all. Or the one that I can relate to probably the most, I have high school students who either complain about taking notes, or if I come up with a fun activity, they think that it's wasting their time. And in all these questions, and when I have these conversations with mentees, it's usually, I think, look, teachers are asking the wrong question. And I was reminded of this again just the other day. Here's what happened. So I missed class the other day because I took my students on a class trip to Texas Tech. My 10th grader stayed behind, and after school I asked my daughter, how did school go? She says it went great. She said everybody got the reading done, and I finally remembered everything that I read. I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean you finally remembered? She said, well, usually in class we sit in a circle and we read together. And I hate doing that. I never remember what I read. I said, why not? She says that she spends most of her time waiting for her turn to come up. And she just gets filled with anxiety. So that when we read, she's not paying attention to anyone else. She's trying to figure out where she's going to read so that she can pre-read it so that she doesn't mess up in front of the class. Even though she's a very good reader, her anxiety gets the best of her. So I ask, would you rather read quietly in class? And she says yes. Dude, we read aloud every day together. And when I taught in Philly, my students needed that. We had to read in short bursts together. I had to go over everything. I had to remind them of what we just read, ask them about what we just read, infer things about what we're reading, foreshadow things about what we're reading. We had to do it actively together, but that was a different classroom and they were different students. So the next day I come in the class, after the students do a journal, I hand out a scrap piece of paper. I say, I want you to write your name on the top of this and I'm going to ask you a very specific question. Answer honestly. I will not share your answer with the class. And I said, would you rather read silently or together when we're in class? And I could not believe the answers. And actually, I want to share something with you real quick. I have this student information, all the information I ever gather from students, whether it's like who am I sheets or midway through the year check-ins, I keep it all in the same binder. Some of these answers were, I'd rather read by myself because I can focus better. I would rather read alone. Reading alone lets me focus better on my story and I make my own connections. Reading alone is what I would 100% prefer. I cannot focus when people are talking, so that's a problem. But if given the choice, I'd rather read alone. Dude, I couldn't believe, it was like 90% of my students, if not more, said that they'd rather read alone. So when I look at things like quiz grades that might be dipping, or if I ask comprehension questions of the class, it's not that my students were they struggle with reading, it's they were struggling with how we were reading in class. Because I was in fact teaching students I wasn't teaching the students I have. Now, what does this mean for us? I'm gonna tell you right now. Former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink has this concept of extreme ownership. And the real idea behind this is that if it's not my fault, I don't have power to fix it. But if I do take ownership of whatever it is going on in my class, a student's behavior, their grades, the way that the class is acting, if I choose to take ownership of that, then I can fix it. But if it's out of my hands, if it's just the kids, if it's just their study habits, if it's just their behavior, if it's just the way that they were raised, I have little to no power over helping in that scenario. Now, what I don't want you to hear there is that this is on you, just on you. It's not about blaming yourself or blaming teachers. It's about taking back control of the situation because then you can actually do something about it. So in all those comments I talked about earlier, I'm not in those classes, but I do work with a lot of teachers from all over the world through mentoring and traveling around and speaking at places and things of that nature. One of the things I notice is that when teachers create a lesson, when they create whether it's a lesson plan, whether it's a game, it's something that maybe worked well before. And now this year you're wondering why it doesn't work. Because not all things are the right fit for every single class because students evolve, they change, they have different interests, they're motivated by different things. And so I think at this point, this is when we have to start teaching like a detective. Because your classroom, your students will always give you clues. I have another class where I'm thinking of a very specific student, and that student comes very late to class regularly. Sometimes as late as 15 minutes late for class. And then they go to the bathroom for some like extended period of time every class too. But if we are playing a game, they are locked in. They are pot committed. They encourage their teammates. They try to do really well. They will study the material because they know it's going to be a game. There's something about the fact that there's points involved, that there's a winner, that there's a loser, that there's something on the line. So if I take those clues and pull them together, I realize that if I want to engage that student and have them engage the other students around them, I got to gamify part of my class. I have another class of students that really struggle with group conversations. So even though they're an older age group of kids, whenever I bring up a conversation, something that's like a little bit deep, they just shut down. They look at each other, they try to avoid eye contact with me, and they just won't talk. But I've learned that because I've done the experiment, if I put them one-to-one, or if I put them in small groups of 3 that are spread out, sometimes I'll even put like a group in the hallway for like really difficult questions, and I just keep an eye on everyone and I facilitate instead of dictate my class, I find that they will talk to one another. It's just about then bringing it to me. So how do I bring the conversation back to me? I say, I want someone in your group to share something somebody else said. So not what you're thinking. So you don't have to face that judgment. But if you heard something that you really loved, if you heard something that was really insightful, if you heard something that was really great, now your friends are basically shouting you out in class, and we still get to have a bit of that conversation. But the kids are learning, which is my ultimate goal anyway. So now we don't do large class conversations anymore. They're always broken to like a turn and talk or small group activities, something of that nature, because that's what helps kids to come alive. This is a concept that restaurateur Danny Meyer, the creator of Shake Shack, used when he would talk about building customer loyalty, when connecting with his customers so that they would return back to his restaurant. He called it...
We have an expression around here which is always be collecting dots so you can always be connecting dots. There's absolutely no excuse not to know who you're talking to and not to know what's important to that person.
You need to be collecting dots so you can always be connecting dots. We need to constantly, every single year, be collecting ideas, thoughts, feelings, noticing what works, what doesn't work. Just like when you notice if 2 kids can't sit next to one another, I need to notice, well, where do you sit? Do you do better when you're over there? Do you do better when it's silent? Do you do better when we are reading alone? Do you do better when we read together? Do I need you to not fill in the study guide while everyone else is doing it? Instead, you're going to write the answers on the board for everybody else to copy so that you're up and actually doing a physical activity instead of just sitting at your desk. Now, real quick, this is a very important point, and I don't want you to miss this. I say in all of my talks, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But you can make it really thirsty. So what happens is, in classes, nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. So you're never looking for the silver bullet. There's no silver bullets in education. What you're looking for is something that's going to get the most kids engaged. What that does is it helps other kids to get engaged. So like that young man that I told you about who's late to class all the time and goes to the bathroom for half the period, when we do a game, he's completely immersed. And then he gets other people, because he doesn't want to lose, he gets his team engaged also. So what could we be doing in class that's going to get the majority over? Too many of us spend time creating lesson plans where we're thinking about the worst kid in class, or the kid that's going to ruin it, or the kid that won't do it. Instead, we need to be thinking about what about the rest? If that student was absent, how would I run this class? And then that's how I need to be looking at things. Because although that student may be problematic, they are less problematic, I would guarantee, when the majority of the class is engaged in what we're doing. So look, even in small classes, you don't need a total shift of your classroom, right? It's like my pastor always says, small tweaks lead to giant peaks. You just need to look for the collecting dots. We're not collecting anything gigantic. We're collecting dots so we can connect dots. Look at your class as if you were a detective. Notice what works. Think back to the beginning of the year of what was working, and then replicate that now. And look, gang, if you're having trouble with that one kid that ruins everything, or that handful of kids that ruin everything, I created a new resource. It's called Reach the One. You can get it right on our website, right at shopteacherclassoff.com. And although it's hard for me to guarantee anything, this resource really works. It's stuff that I've actually used. It's the scripts I use. It's the way that I talk to parents. It's how I handle things in the classroom. It's communicate with administration and other teachers. And it is 20 years worth of effort of how I handle and work with students that are wildly disengaged and how I try to get them back on track. And that's all available for you now. That's it for this one, gang.